There are many countries pushing for the restriction of VPNs. Some countries have already completely gained control of the VPN ecosystem in their respective countries. This control comes in many forms, the most popular of which is a system that bans all non-government approved VPNs. This essentially lets the government of that country control the VPNs and inspect all the traffic being routed through them, effectively completely destroying the purpose that VPNs are used for. Unless you're one of those people that only use a VPN strictly to watch content on streaming services not available in your own country. Many of the leading powers in the world have been trying to restrict and control VPNs for a very long time, but we are sort of seeing a resurgence of VPN restrictions with the rise of, you guessed it, age verification. Why does it always tie back into age verification? The core idea of age verification is to keep children from seeing adult content like gambling sites, certain social media circles like ED Twitter and SH Twitter, and inflation furry art on Rule 34.
Yeah. And then, oh fuck!
I'm not gonna be the guy that says this isn't a noble pursuit, because the goal is not what is the problem here. The problem is what essentially every government in the world has collectively decided to be the solution to children accessing adult sites, which is to scan the face and /or ID of anyone trying to access sites which are restricted by age. This is incredibly stupid. Why do people who have absolutely nothing to do with all of this have to suffer because of it? What happened to fucking parenting? Why do site owners and governments have to babysit the children of the internet? And why the fuck do I, of all people, have to scan my ID to use the internet freely? I think this is an issue that the governments should completely stay out of. I think it's up to the parents to restrict the child's access to content that they don't want their child seeing. You know who shouldn't be parenting your child? Fucking this guy. You know who shouldn't scan your child's face and potentially store it in a database? Old rich person in a position of power. When has old rich person in a position of power ever exploited the power they had to hurt children? Never? Yeah, I'm sure this has never happened. You know who should be dictating and restricting what your child sees online? You idiot! Age verification is more about mass surveillance than it is about protecting children. But let me stop myself before I go on a tangent here. What I wanted to talk about today is VPNs. With the rise of age verification, the usage of VPNs to bypass the age-restricted content has risen just as much. Naturally, the governments which are so adamant about pushing age verification laws were just like, huh? They bypassed age verification? Let's go after VPNs. Hold on, let me call my wife's boyfriend to keep her company while I go grab my pitchfork. What I'm not gonna do is take this as a sign that no one really wants age verification. It's the VPN's fault. This comes from the official UK government website. While virtual private networks are legal in the UK, according to this law, platforms have a clear responsibility to prevent children from bypassing safety protections. This includes blocking content that promotes VPNs or other workarounds specifically aimed at young users. This means that where platforms deliberately target UK children and promote VPN use, they could face enforcement action, including significant financial penalties. Care for some tea and crumpets, eh? That last part, I just added in that last part. That part wasn't actually in there. This isn't exactly backdooring the entire VPN market yet, but this is the very first step. The way these things get bad is through tiny encroachments over the course of a very long period of time. If the government came out one day all of a sudden and we're like, okay, only government controlled or government approved VPNs are allowed in this country, everyone would flip their shit. But if it's slowly introduced over the course of a couple years, no one's gonna bat an eye because they constantly get desensitized to a new level of invasive laws. I think this clip of Quagmire explains my point perfectly.
Hey, that's a stroke!
I just tapped my ball, Quagmire. Relax.
Oh, relax! Oh, okay. Oh, look, I just tapped my ball. Oh, just tapped it again. Oh, tap. Oh, where is it? Oh, it's in the hole!
But don't worry guys, everything's okay, because Technology Secretary Peter Kyle said, "This marks the most significant step forward in child safety since the internet was created." The US, aka the country of LARPing freedom, is also taking this first step. A bill came into effect in May of this year that holds websites liable for users in Utah using VPNs to bypass age verification. This pressures sites to more strictly verify people and block VPN traffic entirely. It is also giving a green light to other states to follow in the footsteps of Utah. Also, during the editing of this video, they're trying to pass something called the Kids Act, which would basically require everyone to upload their ID before you can even get online VPN before you even access the internet. There is also Australia, who is taking a similar stance with the whole kids are using VPNs to bypass age-restricted content and we need to stop that. Indonesia has historically banned DuckDuckGo, and they are actively fighting against the usage of free VPNs because they are said to be used for online gambling, which they don't like. I think every country should just be like the based Russia, who are just like, yeah man, we want to restrict our citizens' access to content we don't want them seeing, so we're taking the fight to VPNs. Fuck yeah, where's my vodka? I would much prefer these countries do that over like the stupid excuses of child safety and like the fucking mental gymnastics that they're pulling to justify all of this. I'm saying all this to demonstrate that we're already seeing it happen in real time, with Protect the Kids very quickly turning into identity checks, location checks, and anything that prevents anonymous internet usage. Both authoritarian and democratic governments are doing the same thing. They're just basically branding it differently. You have Protect the Kids, so we have to restrict VPNs and thoroughly verify the user is an adult. And on the other side of the coin, you just have, we need to stop data. We need to keep data and services under our government control, so we're restricting VPNs and only allowing approved providers and services. The internet has gone from an open free internet to an internet where your access depends on proving things about yourself first, which is stupid. You have to prove things like who are you, where are you, how old are you, are you using privacy tools that obfuscate your fingerprint, and I can't think of any right now, but etc. Today we're gonna learn how to circumvent VPN restrictions, and just a little quick disclaimer so I don't get banned. This is not to bypass age verification, but this is for educational purposes and to maximize our own individual privacy regardless of where you reside or what your flag is, because privacy is a human right, defined by being a human and not by what some fat guy wearing a suit in a fucking government building decides it to be. Essentially, when you connect to your VPN, the fact that you are using a VPN is open to your ISP. Just inspecting the packet, we can see that the protocol is labeled WireGuard. Your ISP can find out the same thing through various means. They can just check if the port number is 51820 and see if that's being used. Port 51820 is the most common port used by the WireGuard protocol. But if this isn't enough, they can do some deep packet inspection and check if the UDP packet has WireGuard-like message bytes and data. They can check if there's a long-lived UDP tunnel or WireGuard-like handshakes. The thing about the WireGuard protocol is that its behavior is very predictable, so an automated system can easily tell what traffic is from the WireGuard protocol and by extension your VPN. The same goes for something like OpenVPN. And just to clear this up, they can't see your VPN traffic, they can only see that you are using a VPN. So this brings us to the first method of obfuscation, which is just changing the port number that WireGuard uses. This is the lowest level of obfuscation, and all the other methods of detection I mentioned can and will still be used to detect that you are using a VPN. The next step above this is turning your VPN packets into a wall of random gibberish, so all that's seen is this. The protocol is no longer obviously WireGuard. Upon a simple inspection, this just looks like random UDP/TCP traffic depending on what you configure it to be. This can be done with Shadowsocks, a proxy protocol that encrypts raw data bytes of VPN traffic and turns it into generic data. You can enable Shadowsocks through most VPN clients like Mulvad, where you just press one button, or on something like Proton VPN if you use that by using Stealth, which is like their version of Shadowsocks, which essentially does the exact same thing. Or you can self-host your own Shadowsocks proxy on a VPS paid for by Monero. The reason for doing so is so that you're not sharing an exit IP with thousands of other VPN users, and you just have a less obvious commercial VPN reputation to your traffic. Before I demonstrate how to do this, I just want to let you know that this isn't the best method for obfuscating your VPN traffic. This is because Shadowsocks was made in 2012, and now almost 2 decades later, it's pretty recognizable. Since the traffic doesn't look like normal traffic, but rather more like a garbled up mess of random data, a sophisticated DPI system can probably still tell that you're using a VPN and you're just obfuscating it with encryption. A common consensus that makes sense on paper is that using multiple layers of encryption or randomizing traffic in some way will help with your OPSEC, when in reality, I'd say it's actually the opposite in this case. Throw yourself in the shoes of a deep packet inspection system. You see normal HTTPS traffic without any anomalies or deformities, so you let it through. But then you see a connection that looks like it's been encrypted 5,000 fucking times and doesn't look like anything you've ever seen before. In fact, it looks like a fucking stalker mutant trying to pass as a human. Would you let it through? Probably not. And even if you do let it through, it would be pretty obvious that something is being hidden, and what else would be hidden aside from a VPN if you're in an area that heavily restricts VPNs? What's better than this is to just make yourself and your traffic look as normal as possible and combine it with compartmentalization. More on this later. In our self-hosted setup, we will improve on the whole idea of Shadowsocks by self-hosting Shadowsocks with the V2Ray plugin. The V2Ray plugin is a SIP-003 plugin for Shadowsocks. Don't know what that means? Don't worry, neither do I. From my understanding, the SIP-003 plugins are a classification of plugins that are designed to transform and obfuscate the transport between the client and the server. You can read up on them in the link I left in the description if you want to learn about it. Basically, we are using V2Ray to sort of wrap our traffic in a way to where it will look less like a random mess of encrypted data and more like the actual behavior of normal TLS traffic on port 443. This plugin ticks most of the same boxes that vless+reality tick, in the sense that on the outside it looks like normal TLS traffic, which can lead people to believe that using Shadowsocks with the V2Ray plugin is on par with something like vless+reality. However, vless+reality is still the better setup because Shadowsocks with the plugin is basically just throwing a Shadowsocks proxy inside of a TLS wrapper, and vless+reality is making the actual proxy connection itself look and behave like a normal and real TLS connection. It's also stronger at resisting probing from DPI systems. Additionally, the V2Ray plugin requires a real domain you have control of, and from an OPSEC perspective, that can potentially increase the vector of attack depending on how you bought your domain. With reality, you can just use a decoy site or point it to an SNI you don't actually have control of. Basically, think of it this way. The Shadowsocks with V2Ray setup is kinda like shipping weed through a postal service. On the outside, it looks like a normal package, right? But something smells funny about it. And on the inside, it is very obviously not a normal package. In fact, it was just a bag of weed laying there in plain sight when you open the package. vless+reality is like shipping weed, but inside of the package itself, the weed is wrapped in multiple layers of smell-proofed bags and a container which hides what it actually is. So even once you open the package and start inspecting it, the package itself still looks like a normal package. That's the best way I can explain it. I hope that makes sense to you. We will cover vless right after we set up Shadowsocks. If you still want to use Shadowsocks despite what I just said, this is how you self-host it. If you don't want to do that, skip to the time listed on screen to skip to vless+reality. I highly recommend using vless+reality instead of Shadowsocks, but if you want to learn something, or if your specific requirement for your setup doesn't require something as strict and like advanced as vless+reality, and Shadowsocks suffices for your setup, then we're just gonna run through self-hosting Shadowsocks real quick right now. Okay, step 1. Buy a VPS. Preferably one that takes Monero. I'm setting up a Debian VPS. And no, it's not Debian. I will never pronounce it as Debian. It's fucking Debian. So all you fucking plebs that keep telling me in the comments that I'm saying it wrong, no I'm not. Next, go into the DNS settings of your domain and create an A record that points to your VPS IP. And then name it CDN. This is going to be different for everyone as every domain provider handles this differently. SSH into your VPS and install all of these. You can use Vim instead of Nano if you're like one of those Vim supremacists, but for the video we're using Nano. This part is optional, but if you want to set up a basic firewall as I am, just run all the commands I'm running here. Basically, we're allowing ports 22, 80, and 443 only, and allowing outgoing connections and denying incoming connections. Then use certbot to get a TLS certificate for your domain. Next, we're gonna create the config for Shadowsocks, and I'm gonna put a template in the description. Just put your domain here and a strong password here. I recommend just using this command to generate a 32 character password and then saving it somewhere. Then just for good measure, run these commands to ensure that Shadowsocks has the necessary permissions to see the TLS certificate. After that, enable Shadowsocks with systemctl, and once you do that, the VPS part of this whole thing is done. On your host machine, there are two options. You can either manually set up the client on the command line, or just use a GUI that streamlines it like Throne. If you want to manually do it, download Shadowsocks in the V2Ray plugin on your host and create a config that looks like this. I'll also put a template in the description for this. Then just run it with this command and you're done. This will let you use it with a browser when you configure it to route traffic through it, if you're interested in something like compartmentalization and only want to run specific things through this setup. If you want to make it system-wide, make it a systemd service. If you use a different init system other than systemd, you'll probably already know how to make this a service. For this video, we're just covering systemd since it has such a monopoly on the GNU/Linux systems that you are probably using it right now. Anyways, make this a service by running this command and using the template I left in the description. After that, just enable it with systemctl. The easier way to do this is just installing Throne. It supports every major desktop operating system, so install it for your OS, then create a new profile and just input your Shadowsocks details and then start it in system proxy or ton mode, depending on what you need. You can also do a manual app proxy for compartmentalization. The last method of obfuscation I was enlightened to by a Russian guy in some forum a while ago. Seriously, if you want OPSEC advice, just ask a Russian. Shout out Russians. Spasiba, my ruske bratya. Anyways, that method is vless over TCP plus reality plus XTLS vision plus uTLS browser fingerprinting. I know that sounds kind of intimidating, but just listen. vless is the proxy/tunnel protocol. Reality is what's gonna make our traffic look normal. Think of it like wearing a disguise in Hitman. Just vless in reality can be enough in most cases, but let's take it a step further, because you know how there are like those enforcer NPCs in Hitman who, even if you have a disguise on, they can still see through it? Adding XTLS vision and uTLS fingerprinting on top of this setup will basically make it so that those enforcers won't recognize you like 99.99% of the time. So reality makes the traffic look like normal web traffic, and then XTLS vision will drastically improve the performance of everything while avoiding things like TLS in TLS fingerprints, which are extremely suspicious. Adding uTLS fingerprinting on top of all this just makes the client-side traffic look like a normal browser. Basically what it does is it makes the traffic say, hey, I'm using Chrome, or hey, I'm using Edge, or hey, I'm using Opera, or whatever the fucky browser you choose to mimic. It's a small like nitpicky thing that probably isn't absolutely necessary at all, but I believe that the devil is in the details here. The more detailed we can get at mimicking normal traffic, the better. This is the best method of VPN obfuscation that I currently know of. If there is like a new meta that I don't know about, that some Russian guy knows about and could enlighten me, please feel free to tell me in the comments. Okay, let's lay out the setup we're about to do before we actually do it. The basic idea is pretty simple. First, you get a private VPS, preferably paid for in a way that does not directly tie your real identity to the server. I recommend Monero. Then, you install Xray and configure vless+reality plus XTLS vision on port 443. The key here is making the connection look like boring HTTPS traffic. That means choosing a good reality target /SNI that makes sense for your VPS. Ideally, a large normal website that supports modern TLS and is geographically/network-wise believable for where your server is hosted. SNI in this context is the site that you're decoying your traffic as, whether that be google.com or microsoft.com or whatever the fuck. If your VPS is in Germany but the SNI you chose is in North Liberty at Asher's house, that can create suspicious fingerprints that a deep packet inspection system will see, and then they'll be like, what the fuck, is this a tunnel? I'm fucking pissed.
Where are you at?
I'm in North Liberty.
Doing what?
I'm at Asher's house.
Your mom's on her way to get you.
Okay.
I am fucking pissed.
You can also run a boring decoy site with something like Nginx if you want to like take it to the next level here, but it's really not necessary. All of this ensures that we remove as many obvious tells as possible. No commercial VPN IP, no obvious WireGuard packets, no weird ports, no DNS leaks, and no traffic that's fucking screaming like, yo, I'm a tunnel. I'm a VPN. What's up? Alright, let's dive in. First, get a VPS. For the 15th time this video, preferably you're gonna want to pay for this with Monero or Bitcoin at the very least. And you're gonna want to use a VPS that doesn't require an email or phone number to set up an account. I'm using the same one I used in my honeypot video since I still have some credits in there. Just do your own research into a good reputable VPS provider which accepts cryptocurrency as a form of payment. Unless you don't mind if the VPS can be tied to your real identity, then just use one of the mainstream ones. I'm doing a Debian, and not Debian, I'm doing a Debian VPS, but you can do whatever works for you. Then SSH into that VPS and update everything. And then download all of these. Then run all of these UFW commands. This is basically a firewall that we're setting up to allow SSH and TCP 443 while blocking everything else. You can technically skip the firewall, but you shouldn't. Then we're gonna install Xray following the instructions from the GitHub README. You can curl like I did or use Git and then git clone it, but you're gonna have to install Git through app. I didn't feel like doing that, so I just curled it, and then after you curl it, you just run install-release.sh. After that's done, we're gonna generate the UUID, the reality keys, and the short ID with these commands. Then use your preferred text editor to set up the config. I'm just using this template that I'm gonna leave in the description. All you do is fill in the fields with all the shit that you have just generated, and make sure in this section you choose an SNI that makes sense for the location of your VPS like I mentioned earlier. I'm just gonna use Rule 34 because this entire setup is just for the sake of the video. Then just to make sure, we're gonna test the configuration before starting the server. If all is well, run systemctl enable Xray. Your client link should look like this. It's just your VPS configuration value is put into a link, so this will be completely different for you. If you're lost and confused, I made a little Python script that I'm gonna leave in the description. You can just run it in your VPS and it's gonna generate the link for you because we're gonna need it in this next step. Next, we're gonna route your main computer's traffic through the vless+reality server, so we can get off the VPS entirely. And if your aim here is just compartmentalization and you just want to route something like a browser through the server, you can stop here and just manually route your browser traffic to the server. But I want to route my entire device's traffic through it, so we're gonna do that. Additionally, you can do this part in a virtual machine to compartmentalize that VM traffic to just the vless in reality server while leaving your main host machine normal. It all depends on your use case and what you want to do with your own OPSEC stack. I'm gonna cover two different ways to do this, and you can choose what works best for you. First, manually setting everything up with Singbox, and next I'm gonna cover Throne, which is basically just a front-end GUI client for Singbox. It works on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, so if you don't feel like manually configuring everything in the terminal, use Throne. Alright, so anyways, install Singbox. This is going to vary depending on what Linux distro you're using, or if you're on Windows, which I doubt you are if you're willing to go this deep into hiding the fact that you're using a fucking VPN. Once it's installed, create the Singbox config and use this template I'll leave in the description. Just fill in what needs to be filled in. Curl ifconfig.me to see your current IP, then start Singbox using systemctl, and then curl ifconfig.me once again. If the IP changed to your VPS IP, it's working. If you're ultra paranoid, you can check if you have a DNS leak by going to something like dnsleaktest.com. You're basically done from here. We basically just self-hosted our own VPN in a way that isn't obviously a VPN like pretty much every commercial VPN on the market. The only downside is we're locked into one static IP. But as long as that IP is never tied to our real identity, then we're okay. When you're done and want to disable it and return to normal, just stop using Singbox using systemctl. For the easy GUI version of what we just did, simply install Throne for whatever operating system you're using it on, and then just launch it. From here, simply create a profile and input the vless client link I mentioned earlier. Now you can just enable the profile and enable ton mode. Don't enable system proxy. Now just make sure your IP is the same as your VPS IP, and that's pretty much it, you're done. This is the Wireshark output for just a VPN with no additional settings. This is the Wireshark output when using Shadowsocks, and this is the Wireshark output for using vless+reality plus XTLS vision plus uTLS fingerprinting. This is probably the closest and most bulletproof method available today for obfuscating your VPN. I don't know about you guys, but if I was a deep packet inspection system, I would not bat an eye at this traffic. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you learned something valuable today. I know I yapped a lot in this one, I just wanted to explain all of this as thoroughly as I can. If there is a better VPN obfuscation method that I didn't cover, or if I got something wrong, please tell me in the comments. Thank you to our channel members. Become a channel member to support the channel, or visit the description to see other ways to support the continuation of this amazing content. I had a lot of fun making this one. I honestly get such a hard on for like learn maxing and skill maxing and doing like stupid little like projects like this. They're fun, and then they provide you so much value with what you learn, and then you can use it to win in life. If you're equally as hard as me, hype the video, subscribe the video, like the video, comment positive affirmations only, and until then, I'll see you. Thank you! Thank you! Thank you so much! Thank you! Oh my god, thank you so much!